I think Sephy Hadley is a really fierce, kind of feisty character. She's super passionate. She loves really hard. Like when she loves something, it's like tunnel vision, which is like a really great quality. But because of that, sometimes Sephy is kind of detrimental to her. She loves so much that she can get consumed and it can be quite destructive. But she's like really warm-hearted and like a really lovely character, yeah. I love her. She's super fearless. So she has qualities in her which like I really wish I had, to be that fearless and outspoken. And also she's like a young black girl who's super confident. And I think growing up, I may not have had those qualities because of just like the system around me. But because of where the play is set, she's allowed to be her fullest self. Like a lot of research. Usually I try to think about the motivations of that character. Like, what does she love? What does she hate? What is she passionate about? And also like that kind of basic character development of like thinking about her history, like what significant thing happened to her in her life and how has that affected her now? So always thinking about like what she really wants and how that is the consistency of that in the play. Like, okay, she wants this thing, this like super objective, we call it, and how does that feed into every scene that she's doing and interacting with whoever. When I was doing like my GCSE, I remembered I was like, but how do you become this character? And now I've done like a bit of training, things like Stanislavski and Meisner technique, and really like you not forget the character, you as yourself, if you were in that situation, like what would you do? Because I think sometimes I didn't really think what would Heather do, and how using like memories or like similar experiences, like when I was in love, like how did that feel, and how can I use like my life to like input the character? I think that was really important for me. Do you know what? Because I've seen theatre where I'm like, you guys don't believe this. Like, or it's awkward, or you can see people pretending. And I think all the performances I've done, which people are like, Heather, that banged, was when I believed it, like, I actually hate this person, which is scary because at that moment you believe it, but if both characters believe it, you can totally drop it when it ends. So I think both of you have to be, like me and Billy are just like, we got to be super honest, man. We can't like pretend this stuff. And that's why I think trust is really important when you're doing stuff like this. Because if you don't trust each other, you'll just feel away and be really awkward and weird. But if you know you have space to be really truthful, then all of that drops off. You feel super comfortable with that person. I mean, me and Callum are trying not to think, Billy are trying not to think about the weight of it, because people have so many expectations of what who Sephy and Callum are, how they look like people like, Sephy has to look like this. And so in my head, I think we're just thinking, we're going to just do versions of what we believe they are and drop the rest, because we're not going to please everyone. So, but I think because it means so much to people, we're realising how important it is, and we're trying to constantly remember that, like we can't just slack and be like, let's just do the scene a bit like this. We have to really like give our all. So this is why the trust is really important, I think, yeah. But it's an honour. It also feels like a big honour to be doing this role too. That is a super good question. Yeah. I think I always like stuff which challenge me or make me feel like a little bit uncomfortable, because I'm very good at playing quite passionate, angry characters. I'm sick at that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm angry, I'm like, yeah, great. But like, being vulnerable and like tender, I'm like, that's so awkward. So I'm like, I really want to do that. And like in theatre, you don't often see like black and white couples, like hardly ever. So it's something I really want to show, like those relationships also are like really tender and loving and that. So I think things which scare me, I'm attracted to doing. Yeah. I think it just makes you a better actor, because I could do all of those angry roles and like be loving it, but I'll be like, nah, I want to like challenge myself. Do you know what I mean? Me and Billy are really having conversations about our experiences to try to understand, because it's like alien to me that someone could, like, concerns around, I need to be, let's example, I have to be quite quiet. I don't want to seem threatening. Like all of these things I always do in different spaces. I just don't have that. So it is quite difficult, actually. And for Billy, he'll say, like, it is difficult too. Like, there's a word in the play, blanca, and it's like, we're talking about the comparison to the N-word, and Billy's like, there's nothing anybody can say to me which will feel like the N-word. Like, no one can say anything to him which will feel like the N-word. And I'm like, I know exactly how that feels. So that's really quite difficult to translate. So, yeah, it's really difficult, actually. I mean, like, we're just living in a really odd time where I feel like people are not empathizing a lot with other people. It's really divided. It's quite like tribal, even in groups where we're looking at women or marginalized communities. And I think the play makes people really understand how it feels to be marginalized, and the understanding of privilege and all of these things we kind of take for granted because of kind of like things around fear, that we're trying to like isolate ourselves. And I think the story really opens yourself to question stuff about yourself, like have those kind of internal conversations. So that's why I think it's important to stage it.